Wow. I don't even know how to behave right
I know,
now.
I'm kind of emotional.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. The Ashley wave. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we are sports reporters in Syracuse, New York, who have a podcast about the Mets and their franchise. The season's over. I'm just going to say it. The 2024 season is over. The Dodgers won in Game 6 of the NLCS. The Mets lost 10-5. And it was filled with a lot of different emotions, but it has come to an end. So how are you feeling?
Well, folks, welcome to the funeral. We promised the funeral. The funeral.
That's why we're both wearing black.
Has arrived. Yes, that is why we're both wearing black. Rest in peace to the 2024 New York Mets. You're my favorite team, maybe in my lifetime, I'd venture to say.
Yeah, I would too.
So sorry that I missed Game 5. I would say I'm happy to be back with you now, but I'm not happy to be back under these circumstances. But it does feel only right that we were here to close it.
That we were here together. I wish we would have bought some Patron and had a shot just to close it all out. But that's neither here nor there. Yes, listen, this was a game where, again, you thought and you had some moments of hope, but ultimately the Dodgers outplayed them, I'd say. And we're going to talk about that and go through the scoring summary a little bit just to recap kind of how this went down and then talk a little bit more about the Mets in general in this season. Let's start with the top of the first inning. Sean MANAEA is pitching. Ashley was watching the game here. I was watching it on a plane back from New York City. What were you thinking when you saw Sean MANAEA, just his vibes, his energy?
I'm not going to lie. Going into this game, I was very hopeful going into this game, as I'm sure a lot of Mets fans were, right? The Dodgers throwing a bullpen game. We forced it back to LA. MANAEA's on the mound. I was telling everybody, and I didn't get to say it because I wasn't here for Game 5, I genuinely and truly thought that this was going to go to a Game 7, and I thought the Mets might lose in Game 7. I really did, but I thought we were going to Game 7.
Exactly with
Sean MANAEA got out there tonight, maybe 2 batters in, good feeling gone. Good feeling evaporated. Sean MANAEA did not have it tonight. You could tell he didn't trust his fastball. He was leaning heavily on his off-speed pitches kind of right away, throwing a lot of changeups, a lot of sliders. It just wasn't his night, man. He got out there. He threw 34 pitches in the first inning. I mean, look, to say he was gassed, he was gassed. It was his 36th pitching appearance this season. He was approaching 200 innings. I think the entire Mets pitching staff was gassed.
They were all
Starters,
gassed.
The bullpen. Now, is that an excuse? No, and I hate that excuse because if you're ever going to get there, if you're ever going to do it, everybody's tired. You don't think the Dodgers are tired? The Dodgers are tired too. 2 things can be true. The Mets pitching staff ran out of gas.
Yeah, they sure did. The Mets actually scored first in this game, which actually gave me a little bit of hope to start things off. It was off this Alonso bloop. It resulted in an error. And in this series, the first run has led to the win 5 out of 5 times until tonight. But then we get to the bottom of the first, and the Dodgers strike right back, scoring 2 runs. I think for me, that's where all of a sudden I'm like, I knew this. I was like, once we get beyond, if the Dodgers have more than a 3-run lead, we're cooked here.
Yeah, the absolute key to this game for the Mets tonight, which Anthony DiComo said on his preview article going into this game, was for Sean MANAEA to pitch well and more than anything to go deep into this game. And he did neither of those things. You could tell right away. Sean MANAEA got 6 outs.
So it is funny you put here the Howie Rose quote. It's so funny that you put that down because I actually was listening to Howie Rose for a lot of this game because I had to run some errands. I don't normally listen to him. What a delight he is. Howie Rose thinks that the Fox broadcasters are a little Shohei Ohtani heavy. Agree or disagree? I'm just curious.
Agree. We'll get into it in a moment, but is this the matchup that the entire world wanted, the Yankees and the Dodgers? I think it was. Yeah.
Was it written? Is this how they wanted it to be when the script writers predicted it? I'm not sure. But, the Dodgers go up 2-1, and then top of the third, McNeil strikes out with the bases loaded. I bring that up to say that's something that happened more than once tonight, and thematically, it really hurt this team.
The hitting with runners in scoring position tonight. I mean, it's kind of like the Mets culminated everything that they couldn't do well this entire series in one game tonight. The pitching gave up 10 runs. They couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. I mean, it was just time after time. I think it was the top of the 6th. The bases were loaded. You were like, all right, this is where they're going to do it. This is where they're going to break through. I think the Dodgers had a 3 or 4 run lead at that point. They just couldn't get it done time and time again. You're waiting for that big hit, and the big hit that they had come through with all year long prior to this never happened in this game. It never happened in this series. The magic ran out.
2 for 9 with runners in scoring position in this game. And bottom of the third is where things really go awry. MANAEA gets 6 outs and gives up 4 runs. His final line was 2 innings pitched, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. Edman was the Mets killer, the thing of nightmares in this series, but particularly in this game. 2-run homer, and all of a sudden the Dodgers are up 4-1. Now we're really in a hole here, and I'm thinking one more run, and it's going to be a problem.
I'm thinking, first of all, Sean MANAEA walking out after 6 outs is literally the nightmare that I dreamt in my sleep last night. The Mets had no chance in this game if Sean MANAEA is going 6 outs. Then Carlos Mendoza decides to put in Phil Maton, which we'll get into in a second. But yeah, Tommy Edman, I mean, what a run. He's just the latest in a lore of Mets cast of characters that kind of, it's not like Tommy Edman, Shohei Ohtani, but he's out here winning the NLCS MVP. Huge series for him.
He was the villain.
Kind of Daniel Murphy reminiscent of the 2015 Mets. So the minute MANAEA got chased from the game, did I think it was over in the 3rd inning? No, but certainly you're climbing up Mount Everest when Sean MANAEA gives you 6 outs.
Well, and here's a question I did have for you. That's the amount that he was able to give tonight. And I'm just curious what you honestly think about this. Did you think that he was pulled out too early, or you did really feel like, based on his performance, it was the right time?
No, had to get him out of there to have a chance to win. Now, when I saw Phil Maton running out is what I had a problem with, because I understand that if you're Carlos Mendoza, you're just in a bad spot, right? You got 7 innings to fill here, 8 innings. But Maton's been a guy who struggled in like his 7 or 8 last outings. Like, he has not had a good postseason at all. I understand he was good down the stretch in the regular season. He really struggled against this Dodgers lineup, and he's really struggled as of late. When you're looking to limit the damage, Phil Maton is not that guy, was not that guy, promptly came in to clean up the mess and actually furthered it, gave up a 2-run home run to Will Smith. All of a sudden, it's 6-1 Dodgers. I don't know who the choice was. The bullpen, I know we didn't have a lot of options.
I know.
But when you are looking to sink or swim, wasn't Phil Maton.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall. Like when he came in, it's like, and again, very tough decisions tonight, and I totally understand that. We talk about how tired some of these guys were, and what would I would have loved in a situation like that, and I feel like you would probably agree. Like a perfect guy would be like Stanek, but how much did he really have to give? Like this is a guy who they've used a lot already.
Right.
Maton has not impressed me in the things that he's done over his past few starts, but that was the thing. It was like tonight was frustrating because I don't even know that I would say it was necessarily bad management. Like I just think the Dodgers were the better team tonight.
Mendoza was grasping at straws with the bullpen. The minute the MANAEA situation went awry, as you said, it was kind of all over.
It was tough. And mind you, it wasn't really all over still at this point. In the top of the 4th, Alvarez singles and Vientos, my boy, pay him, 2-run home run, and all of a sudden it's 6-3. Like, Vientos is the guy who over and over again gave us life. And just to say it before we go further in the scoring summary, we are going to hit on some of our things that we loved the most about this 2024 season later in the episode. So stick around for that if you want to reminisce on how cool this season really was.
And Mark Vientos was one of them. Mark Vientos, star.
Absolute star. He now holds the postseason RBI record for the Mets with 14. It was his 5th home run of the postseason. He was lights out, man, in every sense of the word.
I love the guy. He comes through in the clutch. I mean, he protects Lindor depending on where he's hitting in the lineup. He just has a penchant for the big moments. He was so good this postseason and down the stretch. And I think Mets fans can at least take solace tonight. I know we're not going to take solace in a lot, but the fact that you appear to have your cornerstone new franchise third baseman.
Bottom of the 4th, Edwin Diaz. Enter Edwin Diaz in the bottom of the 4th.
The scream I scrumped.
Wait,
just had to say it.
Screams were scrumped in that moment.
Oh boy.
Because you knew, like, things are getting a little weird here.
We got Edwin Diaz out in the bottom of the 4th. We got problems. Okay, like, and that's an understatement. It's his earliest outing since he was in Seattle in the first year of his career. Did I hate it at first? Yes, but then upon further review, you had to limit the damage there when it's 6-3. All right, Vientos has gotten you back in this thing. Let's just throw our best stuff at the problem to stop the damage. Then I decided I liked it. Diaz was on tonight. He had all of his stuff working. He pitched a really great 2 innings. But then I got mad again because he only threw 22 pitches. I thought Edwin Diaz could have went out for a third inning. He put Ryan Stanek in. Stanek had nothing tonight, as good as he's been all year long. And I just think, look, like there is no tomorrow. So like, what are you saving Diaz for? Because tomorrow, at that point, they were losing the game. It didn't exist.
Yeah, good point. I know. Listen, again, it's tough because what if tomorrow really did come around? And then what are you going to do then? But I hear you. Like, you can't think that way. You had to think in the here and now, and you had to win today in order to get to tomorrow, and I understand that. Take you to the top of the sixth. Again, just want to mention it. Jesse Winker, who, mind you, has done a lot of great things in this postseason, but he also popped out to leave the bases loaded. And that, to me, felt like the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I think that's when we put on our black outfits and kind of got ready to go here.
Yeah. We started praying. I mean, they had 3 innings after that, but Winker has been one of their best hitters throughout this NLCS, had the highest OPS on the team. I was happy to see him showing to the plate in that moment, and then I wasn't. Also, that was a situation where the Dodgers pitcher at the time was really wild, throwing a lot of balls, walked Alonso. There were some competitive at-bats in that inning, and I just didn't feel like Jesse Winker had one, and it was tough. It was kind of the nail in the coffin, like you said.
Top of the seventh, Alvarez sac fly to right, and then Taylor scored. Bottom of the seventh, enter Kodai Senga. So again, just throwing everything out here. You're seeing massive amounts of just pitchers tonight and weird things that you would not normally see. Senga did not do really well by any means. This is, again, kind of, I mean, the wheels had already fallen off, but maybe at this point the bus is kind of falling over too.
The bus crashed.
I don't really know what to say because in the bottom of the eighth, 3-run score, and you knew. I mean, you knew, and that was kind of that.
I'm gonna say something without hitting the panic button. Well, we threw out the panic button. It's in the river, but Kodai Senga. The Mets have to be concerned about Kodai Senga. I understand that this was a weird year and he was hurt and then he was hurt again and he weird rehab times in the postseason. I understand what happened. The Mets, I do not think, and we'll get into it, I don't think the Mets can go into next season telling me and selling everybody that Kodai Senga is their certified ace. He didn't look like it this year. I know maybe an offseason full of rest and rehab and whatnot does him a little better, but I am concerned about Kodai Senga.
And I understand. And for the record, those are the kinds of episodes that we'll be doing in the future, among many other things. So we'll talk about that at the end, what our plan is for the future. I want to bring this up. Top of the ninth, McNeil singles to right, and Tyrone Taylor scored. That meant something to me.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Like, I knew the game was over, but that meant something to me because that ninth inning showed what we have seen all season long.
Yeah.
And any commentator, any broadcaster, I think even the Dodgers fans would tell you this.
Yeah.
There was no quit in that team until the final out. And that's why the fans believed. Listen, it didn't work out. The Dodgers are a really good team. I would not be surprised at all to see them win the whole thing. I actually hope they win the whole thing, so I do feel better. But you too or no?
I don't know. I haven't sorted that out yet.
Okay. for another episode. But I felt proud. I felt proud in that moment to be a Mets fan. I really did.
Yeah, me too. Just setting a scene with my personal life. If you think you had it bad tonight, try having to go on TV and talk about this in an objective sense. Really not fantastic. Like we've mentioned many times, we're sports broadcasters. I was anchoring the news tonight and had to tell everybody how the Mets lost. While that was also happening, the New York Liberty, shout out WNBA, won the WNBA championship. So just picture me literally running in circles trying to get on TV about the Liberty and the Mets and the Jets are playing and I'm literally running a million miles a minute.
And she's like smiling and then frowning.
And you know what? And I wanted to cry and I wanted to get emotional about the Mets, but I just truly did not have time to because the Liberty debacle was going on and I was in 3 different shows. So that was probably good for my personal well-being because I couldn't actually stare at the screen and cry.
But now that you have time to process and be emotional, we're going to take a minute and talk about it because this was an astonishing season. And for as much as we just critiqued in the scoring summary, because we also know we have a Dodgers audience here, we want you guys to be able to hear about the game. This was a season that was so impressive in so many ways. What a first season for manager Carlos Mendoza, for David Stearns, for the bullpen arms that they brought in mid-season.
For Mark Vientos.
For the cheap pitchers that they were able to get.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many things that you can look at and think, wow, this team is in such a good position going into 2025.
Yeah, I mean, look, this series, they ran into a wall. The Dodgers were a better team than the Mets. That is just absolutely undeniable. I think the Dodgers have a really, really good chance to beat the Yankees in the World Series. you're not going to win this series giving up 10 runs a game. They were outscored, I believe it was 40-26 in this series. The pitching really did them in. I think with the offense, we saw them struggle with runners in scoring position, but even tonight, you put up 5 runs. That's not an automatic loss to score 5 runs in a game. The pitching just ran out of gas, starters to bullpen all the way through. I think expect the Mets to make heavily pitching-based decisions this offseason, bring in some starters, bring in some relievers, whatever. So that's that. Dodgers fans, good luck, Godspeed. I haven't sorted it out with myself yet, who I'm rooting for, because the evil empire, the Yankees, who I don't think deserve to be there, are on the other side. But how can I root for the Dodgers when they just cause me so much pain and suffering and heartbreak and misery? I think the Dodgers deserve it more, so I think...
Nah, I'm rooting for the Dodgers.
That's what I'm saying. I think I am sorting that out, and I'm talking through it right now. Thank you for coming to therapy. And I think I will be rooting for the Dodgers because I can't root for the Yankees. It's against
you're not
my
gonna
religion.
do that. You're not ever going to do that. I know you're not.
I know, but anyways, the Mets were such a good story this season. I think because it was so unexpected, more than anything else. I mean, in March, we were being told like this was a rebuilding year.
I know.
Rebuilding year. We're playing baseball on October 20th.
That is not a rebuilding year at all.
No.
You're right. It was an expect the unexpected, and from Grimace to the 0-5, like this is a team that was 11 games back, 11 games below 500. Like the fight that they showed, it's like when you're a fan, I feel like what you really take pride in is the players and the way that they carry themselves and what they're able to bring to the fan base. I love the guys on this team. And what makes me the most sad, beyond the fact that they're not going to go to the World Series, is the fact that no matter what happens in the offseason, it's not going to be the exact same team. And I think if anything, that should make all fans hold this season even more special and close to their heart, because it's never going to be replicated.
Yeah, I think this season, I know Grimace and all of the Mets mascots and memes, that made it was such a fun summer of baseball in New York for sure, and that made the whole process that much more fun. But this season, more than anything else, was My Girl with Francisco Lindor, and it was Lindor, and it was the Lindor season of a lifetime. But truly, to me, it was the little moments. It was Mark Vientos becoming a star. It was the times Tyrone Taylor came through in the clutch. Like, it was the things from the guys you didn't expect to get this team to where they got to. And it wasn't always from the stars. I mean, we were so harsh on Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo's terrible second half. And, like, it wasn't the core 3 that I feel like really propelled them all the way here. It was every little guy in between. And I think you really have to appreciate that. I think if you're David Stearns, you really have to appreciate that. It is certainly not going to be the same exact team, but I think they learned a lot of things on who's worth bringing back and who's not. And a breakout year, we can't forget about Sean MANAEA. I mean, the guy's an ace at 32.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many different little player storylines that built this into what it was.
There's 100% true. Not to mention, the big guys who you're talking about, those normal stars. Like, I will always think back to the Pete Alonso homer against the Brewers.
Always.
Like, there were times where the big stars really did have their moment that was so needed and we were so desperate for. I think you could look at this season and you could want more and you could hope for more and there could be wishful thinking, but at the same time, I think you have to look at it objectively, which we always do, and say the Mets had no business coming this far as it was.
Yeah.
Like, that to me alone was impressive. So again, I know I'm normally glass half full. I'm obviously bummed out. I would have loved to see them go all the way. But for this to be branded as a rebuilding year and then to be one of just 4 teams playing in baseball, really 3, is nothing short of impressive, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree objectively. I also am not there yet in my head, as you knew I was going to say. I think they had lightning in a bottle this year, and that's really hard to replicate. I think all the moments and all the magic and all of the comeback wins, it's really hard to be one of the last 4 teams standing, one of the last 3 teams standing inevitably, and that's just a fact. I think the Mets have a lot of good pieces to build off of. I think Steve Cohen has seen this year and will do everything he can to bolster the pitching and get Juan Soto if that's what's needed and yada, yada, yada. But I also just think it is really hard to get here, and I think that's why I was so sad tonight, because at moments Did I believe that this was the World Series team that was finally going to do it? Yeah, I did. And I know I'm only 24, but thinking about like my dad, who's been waiting for another World Series since 1986, and everybody who's probably listening to this podcast that's in that same camp. It kind of feels like, when are they ever going to get it done? And I'm not going to lie to you, as much as I sat here and I didn't want to admit it, at times this year, I thought this was the team that was going to get it done. And maybe it will be next year, and we'll see what happens. But
we all knew you did feel that way, Ashley, even though you wouldn't say
deep down inside,
it.
why do you think I wouldn't say the word World Series? There's
know.
superstitions to these things.
You guys have to understand, we have not seen the Mets win a World Series in our entire lifetime, which I'm sure you very well know.
But I will say something. For what it's worth, and again, I'm 24 years old, this was my favorite Mets team of my lifetime, more than the 2015 team that did go to the World Series and did lose it. And David Wright was my favorite player that got me into the Mets of all time. But top to bottom, this team, you just had to root for them. Like, if you were not a Yankees fan and you were not a Dodgers fan, I truly felt like America was rooting for the Mets in a sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I felt like they were America's team, and I know that, an argument could be made about the Guardians as well. But I really was. I was so impressed. I felt so excited throughout the whole season. I'm so happy that this is the year that we started a podcast during the season. And last but not least, I did want to say that I also think you have to look at the Syracuse Mets and some of the players that came from that. Like, when you talk about, the crazy parts about this season, and I get it, he didn't do great in the postseason, but how about Iglesias? How about Vientos, like you said, and everything that he's been able to accomplish? Like, the Syracuse connection to this season was real.
Yeah, I mean, there were guys that were so impactful to this run that were down in Syracuse. We said Vientos, Jose Iglesias, can't forget about him. Certainly hope to see more of him next season, but yeah, just some quotes I wanted to point out from tonight. I know everybody's going to be wondering about Pete Alonso. He told SNY, I mean, this could have been Pete Alonso's last game in a Mets uniform. I just got to throw it in. I just do, because Dan said it, so this is honoring intern Dan in this episode. If that was Alonso's last at-bat in a Mets uniform, striking out on those outside sliders that he loves to swing at was just very fitting. He said, I loved being a New York Met. I love representing the city of New York. I love representing Queens. This has been really special. And he says he has not thought about his impending free agency at all. Jose Iglesias, Candelita, Latin pop star, said that he'd love to be back with the Mets next season. I'm going to go out and say it. I think the Mets should bring back Jose Iglesias next season. I know he fell off a cliff in the postseason. I know he's going to be 37. I also think he's just a utility infielder who, let's face it, provided a lot of magic, but not only provided a lot of magic, was very, very good in the clutch, hit for average, was good defensively. I think Iglesias should be back. Jesse Winker said it'd be incredible and amazing if he could return to the Mets next season. We saw how clutch he was for them down this postseason run. JD Martinez doesn't know. I kind of feel like JD won't be back, if I'm going to be honest. And Francisco Lindor said some nice words as well. But what I was culminating there was every single guy. I mean, of course, what are they going to tell the cameras? But genuinely, this felt like a brotherhood, and this feels like they want to be here next season. And if Steve Cohen and David Stearns can be proud of one thing this year, they can be proud of a lot of things this year, as we've said, but they can be proud of turning the culture around of the New York Mets. Steve Cohen said I think it was when they beat the Phillies in the NLDS in the postseason interview, said that he didn't, I forget the exact phrasing, but he wanted to get away from the stigma of being like, oh, the Mets. Like, the Mets, just that Mets, like, stigma, the Mets never win anything, Mets gonna Met. And I think they have gotten away from that. I know it's just one season, and I know but this year is going to make players want to come to New York. Top to bottom, wins aside, it's the culture. It has made it a desirable place to play, money aside.
Yeah, money completely aside. I totally agree. I think the culture is the biggest thing that you can look back on, and I get it. It was just one season, but one season matters. Not to mention the whole reason that, it was sort of it was supposed to be, I guess, or they branded it as a rebuilding year, is because 2025 was supposed to be the year. So there's more coming. There's a lot of things to be excited about. Anything else that you want to say or hit on before we wrap things up and preview what's ahead for our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of said it all. The Mets magic ran out. I'm sad. I'll be sad for a while. I'll let you all know when I'm moving on. But
she won't wear black that episode, and you'll know.
I won't wear black that episode, and you will know. But the Mets gave us a great run. They gave us such a fun summer. The Dodgers were the better team. The Mets could have pulled out this series, and I'm going to say it for all you Dodgers fans that have been listening. Thank you so much. Godspeed in the World Series. I think if the Mets would have escaped with winning this series, it would have been by the skin of their teeth, and you would have kind of been like, oh my God, they escaped again, rather than, wow, the Mets are the better team. Now, do I also feel like the Mets could have beaten the Yankees in the World Series based on the regular season results and those matchups? Yeah, I do. But we won't get that opportunity. It is what it is. I hope the Dodgers send those sorry Yankees back to their little hole in the Bronx.
Oh my God. It's like, and you know what? I'm just going to say it. That is part of the reason why it hurts, because I did feel like the Mets could beat the Yankees. I really did. And I was thrilled when the Yankees won. Thrilled.
Me too.
I was like, woohoo!
And you know what, folks? I am well aware that the Yankees had the best record in the American League and all of it, but I was sitting at home with my dad this weekend. Well, I said I went home, there was a wedding, whatever. I was sitting there and we were watching the Yankees beat the Guardians, and I said, the Mets were still alive at this point, obviously. Exactly what you just said, that I felt good about the Yankees if the Mets were to face them. And also, the Yankees I know they haven't been to the World Series in 15 years. I got it, okay? But they just don't feel deserving of being there, because you could have asked me in August in the American League what team did I think was going to be left standing in the American League side and what team was going to win the pennant. I would have said the Orioles. I would have said the Astros. I would have had a long list. And I know the Yankees had the best record, but they just didn't seem to have that atmosphere, that fight. And I'm going to say it, they had a real easy path to get there, and I think the Dodgers are going to beat them. Thank you.
And she hopes the Dodgers are going to beat them. Well, looking ahead, again, thank you guys so much. No matter what fan base you are a part of, no matter what team you root for, this has been a really special experience for us starting this podcast in our first season. And we do try and read as many comments as we can. We love interacting with you guys. And that's the reason why we keep doing it, truly, is because we know that you guys are watching. Moving forward, we do plan to absolutely continue this into the off season. We will go back to our once a week format, barring some breaking news.
Yeah.
This is a Mets podcast, and it always will be. At the same time, we have noticed from the Dodgers fans who have been around that if you guys would be interested in some other baseball talking points, that's something that we'd like to expand to, especially in some of the months where we're a little bit lighter on content. But we will continue doing this, so please come back, subscribe, and we want to be here for you for all the big trades and big moments and things that happen in baseball.
Yeah, we're going to go back to once a week. It had been Tuesday mornings, the episodes were getting released. But if something big happens, like wherever Juan Soto goes, we're going to talk about it, regardless if it's the Mets or not. Of course, also the Mets breaking news, when Alonso decides, we'll be sitting here that night if we can be. So just that type of stuff. And I know we had a lot of interest from Dodgers fans and the Yankees, so we do want to at least touch on the World Series in some regard. Don't know exactly when that'll be. I think we'll just know when it fits, right? If they're going to a Game 7, maybe before the Game 7. If it's not till it's all over, then not till it's all over. But we certainly want to, I wouldn't say expand, but expand a little bit into just more of the baseball hot topics where and when we can, and where and when we feel that our opinions, I feel like, are warranted.
Yes.
So that's our plan moving forward. I am still comprehending that there's going to be no parade.
I know.
I was thinking there might be a Mets parade.
I know. We actually asked our boss, can we go into the parade maybe, or could we go to the World Series?
And he said yes.
And he said he would think about it.
So anyway, the parade's off, and that's all,
so
folks.
funny.
The Mets season ends in the wee hours of Monday, October 21st. But if you would have sold me on that in June, I would have signed up with my smiling face. And I know that sucks to hear, but you know what? Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it's happened. And I know nobody wants to hear that tonight, but for real.
Thank you, everybody, so much for being a part of our first season in the books of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. You can find us on Twitter, social media, YouTube. The handle is all the same, @WhyMetsPod. And I'll leave you with this question. What kinds of things would you want us to talk about in the offseason? We would truly love to know. Thanks so much again for joining us, and we will see you back here next time.